Hi, I'm Caryn Beck-Dudley. I'm the President and CEO of AACSB International. My path into higher education is not the traditional path. I went to law school and I was a practicing lawyer. My late husband actually got a position at a university and we wanted to live in the same town. So there was an ad in the classifieds for a temporary business law professor. And a real estate agent who wanted to sell us a house called me and said, "Do you think you could teach?" And of course I was very, very young and I said, of course I could teach. And literally within 3 weeks notice, I taught a class of 250, a class of 80, and a class of 40, and never looked back. I was thrilled with the opportunity to be able to teach. And when a law firm in the town where the university was called and said that they had a position for me, I said, no, I think I'm going to pursue this as a career, and entered the tenure track position at that time. I love to teach. When I was little, I used to teach dance lessons and piano lessons and gymnastics to all the neighborhood kids. And when I got older, I didn't want to be a teacher. My mother was a teacher, my grandfather was a teacher, and I did not want to pursue that path. But when I got the opportunity to teach at a university level, I loved it. I loved the power it provided. I loved the ability to be able to help young minds really move into their new careers. And the university I taught at actually had a lot of first-generation students whose parents didn't go to college. And to see how teaching and going to a university and being part of a university experience changed their lives and their children's lives really continued to inspire me, and still does. You know, as a female leader at higher ed, it's been a really interesting journey. When I took my position at my first university, I was actually the first woman on tenure track in the department of 40 individuals. And I was one of only 3 in the College of Business who were on tenure track. I had a baby on tenure track, and I was the first woman in the university to have a baby who was on tenure track. And that was before the laws which allowed you to take maternity leave, etc. And so it was a really interesting challenge. The men had their groups, they had their lunch groups, they had their golf outings. They weren't necessarily interested in having me join that. But what it did is I had to actually break out and come up with new ways and new ways to actually interact with my colleagues. It helped, I'll be frank about it, that my late husband was also on tenure track, so he had a lot of interesting information that as a female I did not necessarily have access to. But with that said, I had great colleagues. They were supportive of me, they helped me move forward, they really helped me grow. As I became an administrator, the pool of women became smaller. And I was the first woman dean at my first university. I was the first woman dean at my second university. I was the first woman dean at my third university. And now I'm the first woman to be the president and CEO of AACSB, even though we're 100 years old. So frankly, I'm tired of being the first. I'm ready for people to step up, come up to the plate, and we have a huge number of qualified women applicants for all the positions. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next generation can do. You know, women in higher ed have a lot of opportunities, and I'm very excited to see what they'll do with those opportunities. But really some of my advice, and I give this to women who are in higher ed and other areas, is just laugh a lot. There are a lot of funny things that happen, and sometimes we try to take those too personally, and they're not really personal. And so I spent a lot of time laughing. I also said yes. And I know that there's a lot of information out there that women should say no more often. I'm not sure I always agree with that. I said yes to opportunities that I probably wasn't ready for, that I didn't feel prepared for. But by saying yes, I was given those opportunities, and then I learned how to do it. And so most of my male colleagues always said yes if they were moving up the track or they were getting a better promotion. And so my advice to women is to say yes and then just figure it out later. A lot of women in my generation didn't have formal mentors. There just weren't women above us. And so what I really relied upon is observing leadership and observing my colleagues and the way they led, whether they were women or men. One of the women that I really watched carefully was Dr. Larzette Hale. She was the chair of our accounting department at the time when I was a young faculty member, and her daughter and I were actually sorority sisters as undergraduates. She was the first African American woman to be a CPA and have a PhD in accounting. and she was an orphan. And so just watch how she handled herself, the types of barriers she had to have overcome. She was a real trailblazer, and I always felt like I was standing on her shoulder and other people's shoulders with the types of experiences they had, what they overcame, and I always felt a lot of gratitude as she reached down and very carefully corrected my behavior and my attitudes when they needed corrected. The one piece of advice that I would give a woman in higher ed or in other positions is have fun. Life is really, really short, and time is all you have, and all of us have an equal amount of time. So if you're not having fun doing it and you're not making an impact doing it, then don't do it and go do something else. Well, thank you so much for interviewing me and for providing this opportunity for me to share some of my 37 years in higher education. And I hope that it has been beneficial, and looking forward to hopefully meeting many of you in person sometime. Thanks.